My name is Professor Mate HT, Department of Botany from RBNB College, Srirampur. So today I am going to tell about the paper 2nd plant physiology, topic number 4, transpiration. Topic number 4, transpiration. And from this, the first point, that is the introduction. The plants absorbs very large amount of the water, but from this only 1 to 2% of water is get utilized by the plant to perform its different types of the metabolic activities. But from very large amount of the water, that is up to 98 to 99% water is get lost by the aerial surface of the plant. So that means there is very huge water loss takes place from the plant parts. For example, sunflower in its complete entire life cycle, it losses about 56 kg of the water. So very huge water loss is there. Now definition of the transpiration. The loss of water in the form of water vapor through aerial parts of the plant is called as the transpiration. Always there is a water loss in the form of a water vapor. Now types of the transpiration. Now based on the transpiring surface, that is based on the transpiring organ, there are 3 different types of the transpiration, that is a cuticular, lenticular and stomatal. So these are the 3 main types of the transpiration which are based on the transpiring surface or on the basis of a transpiring organ. Now from this, number 1, that is the cuticular transpiration. The transpiration which takes place in the form of water vapor through the cuticle is called as the cuticular transpiration. Cuticle is the outermost covering on the epidermis. It is thin or thick according to the plant. If the plants are xerophytic, the thick layer of the cuticle is there, and if the plants are mesophytic, then there is a very thin layer of the cuticle. And the site of the cuticle is like this. When cuticle is very thin, and if there are some cracks, then there is the transpiration takes place, and this is about 10 to 20% of the water loss takes place by the cuticle or by the cuticular transpiration. So this is the number 1, that is the cuticular transpiration. Generally it takes place when the cuticle is very thin and if there are the cracks. Now second type, that is the lenticular transpiration. It is the transpiration which takes place through a minute pore which are called as the lenticel, and it is in the form of water vapor called as the lenticular transpiration. Generally cuticles are developed in bark of the woody plants or also in the rind of the fruit. So these are the minute openings developed in the bark. Generally what happens, epidermis is get replaced by the cork during extracellular secondary growth, and another special kind of a structure is get formed. That structure is called as the lenticel, and in the lenticel there are a special type of cells. These cells are called as the complementary cell, and through which the water vapor released in the atmosphere. The structure is like this. So at the time of a secondary growth, in extracellular secondary growth, epidermis is get replaced by a cork, or which is also called as the bark. And in this bark there are small openings, minute openings, pores, and these pores are called as the lenticel. And below this, in the cork, there are special type of cells. These cells are called as the complementary cell. And water loss takes place through this complementary cell and through the pore, that is the lenticel. And only 0.1% of the water loss, that is very negligible as compared to the total water loss which is transpired by the plant. Only 1% of the water loss takes place through the lenticel. Now third type, that is the stomatal transpiration. Third point, stomatal transpiration. The water loss in the form of water vapor, when it takes place through the stomata, then it is called as the stomatal transpiration. And nearly about 80 to 90% of the water loss takes place through the stomata. That means the main transpiring organ is the stomata. That means about 80 to 90% water loss takes place through the stomata. Now there is a specific distribution of the stomata. When plants are xerophytic, When plants are xerophytic, stomata are developed only toward the lower surface. That means they are restricted only the lower surface. And when plants are mesophytic, then stomata are developed on upper surface and also on the lower surface. And when the plants are hydrophytic, the stomata are developed on upper surface only. So it is according, distribution of the stomata is according to the climatic condition or according to the type of a plant. That means there is a different type of or it completely depends on the type of a plant of the hydrophytic, xerophytic and mesophytic, and stomata are developed in the epidermis. Next point, that is the path of water in stomata. Now this is the TS of the lip about the path of water. Initially, the water is absorbed by root hair in the soil. From root hair, it enters into the epiblema cell. From epiblema cell, it enters into the cortex, and from cortex into the endodermis, that is in the passage cell. From passage cell into the pericycle, and from pericycle, it enters into the xylem. And from xylem of the root system, it reaches into the xylem strand of the shoot system, and from xylem strand of the shoot system, finally with the help of a mid vein and lateral vein, water enters or it reaches up to the mesophyll cell. That means here, now mesophyll cells are of two different types, that is the palisade and spongy. Now water is here, that is in the xylem, and from xylem it diffuses into the mesophyll cell, and from a mesophyll cell it is gathered in the air cavities, and from air cavities it is released in the form of a water vapor into the atmosphere. So this is the track or path of the water or water vapors from interior of a plant into the exterior of the plant, that is into the atmosphere of the plant. Now next point, that is the structure of stomata. Now on the basis of different types of the plant parts, for example in monocot the guard cells are dumbbell shaped, but in dicot they are kidney shaped, and here there is a structure of the dicot stomata. So from external side there are mesophyll cell or the subsidiary cell. The number of a subsidiary cell is different in a different plant. On the basis of a number of subsidiary cells, there are different types of the stomata. Inside this there is the kidney shaped two guard cells from both the side. The outer wall of the guard cell is very thin, it is elastic and it is stretchable, and the inner wall is very thick, it is non-elastic, and in between these two walls there is the cytoplasm, and at the center there is the central vacuole which is filled with the sap. A large nucleus is there, and different types of the cell organelles are there, with most important, that is the chloroplast is also there. So this is about the structure of the stomata. And the transpiration, water loss takes place from the stomatal pore, which is also called as the stomatal aperture.